Huntsville, Alabama, is dubbed Rocket City due to its significant role in space exploration after World War II. Today, the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville remains an icon, having produced 32 Saturn rockets, 6 of which took humans to the moon. But on February 12, 2010, the city's tranquility was shattered by a horrific shooting at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, UAH. The suspect was apprehended shortly after, and the case stunned public opinion not only for its severity, but also for the dark past of the perpetrator, hidden behind the identity of a university professor. Right now, let's dive deep into this case with me. Amy Bishop, a 44-year-old biology professor, walked into a biology department meeting as usual. The meeting had been going on for about 45 minutes, discussing schedules and budgets for the next semester. No one expected that, as Department Chair Gopi Padilla was about to wrap up, Bishop would quietly stand, pull a Ruger P-85 handgun from her bag, and start shooting. She aimed directly at the heads of those closest to her, killing Gopi Padilla, Maria Ragland Davis, and Adriel Johnson one by one. 3 others, Stephanie Monticello, Luis Cruz Vera, and Joseph Leahy, were seriously injured. The scene was chaotic. Blood, screams, and arms raised in defense. Bishop only stopped when her gun jammed, allowing Professor Deborah Moriarty to seize the moment, push her out of the room, and barricade the door. Police quickly arrived at the Shelby Center building, arresting Bishop as she exited near a loading dock. Coldly, she told them, "That didn't happen." But the scene was undeniable. 3 dead, 3 wounded, and a Harvard-trained professor, now a murderer. The Huntsville community was reeling. Amy Bishop wasn't a stranger bursting into the school. She was part of UAH, a scientist, a mother of 4. What drove her to such ruthless action? This wasn't random. It was the culmination of a troubled past, marked by uncontrolled rage and secrets buried for decades. To understand this story, we have to go back to the beginning, when Amy was still a young girl in Braintree, Massachusetts. Amy Bishop was born on April 24, 1965, in Iowa City, Iowa, to Sam and Judy Bishop. Sam was an artist who later taught art at Northeastern University in Boston, while Judy was an active woman who served on the Braintree, Massachusetts Town Council, where the family settled after Sam completed his master's degree. In 1968, Seth, Amy's younger brother, was born, completing the model family of 4. Both Amy and Seth grew up in an environment that encouraged academics, arts, and science. From a young age, Amy excelled at the violin and was exceptionally bright, but she always felt overshadowed by Seth. Seth wasn't just good. He outshone Amy in every field. He played the violin like a prodigy, serving as concertmaster of the Boston Youth Symphony, winning national awards in math and science, and even having short stories published in the school magazine. While Amy was smart but socially awkward and prone to anger, Seth was sociable, beloved by friends and teachers. The sibling rivalry grew increasingly evident. Amy once told friends she felt her parents favored Seth, always praising him despite her own achievements. When both enrolled at Northeastern University, where their father taught, Seth continued to shine, while Amy, despite her efforts, couldn't escape her brother's shadow. At Northeastern, Amy met Jimmy Anderson, a biology student, through the Dungeons and Dragons Club. Jimmy, though Amy called him James, deeming Jimmy not classy enough, became her boyfriend. They shared many interests, but Seth had no liking for Jimmy, further straining the siblings' relationship. Amy threw herself into her studies as if to prove herself. She graduated in 1988 with an outstanding thesis on neurobiology and was accepted into Harvard's PhD program. But just before embarking on this new chapter, a tragedy changed everything. Seth's death, with Amy as the one who pulled the trigger. On December 6, 1986, at the family home in Braintree, 21-year-old Amy Bishop shot and killed her 18-year-old brother Seth with their father's 12-gauge Mossberg shotgun. According to Amy's account to police, she was home alone and felt someone might be breaking in, so she took the gun from her father's closet, fearing theft. She loaded it, but didn't know how to unload it. When she heard her mother and Seth return, she brought the gun downstairs to the kitchen to ask Seth for help. As she handed it over, it discharged, striking Seth in the chest. He was rushed to the hospital but didn't survive. Judy, Amy's mother, testified that she witnessed it and that it was an accident. After a brief investigation, Amy was released and no charges were filed. Local residents offered condolences for the loss, and the Bishop family continued living in the house. They even kept Seth's room untouched as a painful memento. After Seth's death, Amy didn't pause but dove into her studies. She and Jimmy married in 1989 at the same church where Seth's funeral had been held 3 years earlier. An odd choice. Amy kept the Bishop surname, aspiring to fame as Dr. Amy Bishop, not Mrs. Anderson. Both graduated from Northeastern, and Amy was accepted into Harvard's PhD program in genetics. There, she researched cellular physiology, a complex field, and completed her dissertation in 1993. Though rumors swirled that her work lacked quality, an anonymous Harvard source called her degree a local scandal, yet she passed. During her time at Harvard, Amy and Jimmy had 3 daughters, followed later by a son named Seth, born on the same date as her late brother. Family life was hectic, but Amy didn't abandon her ambitions. She worked at Harvard Medical School under Dr. Paul Rosenberg's guidance. However, her personality soon caused trouble. She clashed with colleagues, accusing them of stealing credit, and received negative evaluations from Rosenberg. He recommended she resign in November 1993 for failing to meet standards. Amy left, but her anger toward Rosenberg lingered. In December 1993, Rosenberg received a package containing 2 homemade pipe bombs wired to 9-volt batteries. At the time, bombings targeting university and airline workers had heightened Paul's alertness. Fortunately, he opened the package from the middle rather than the edges, spotting wires and metal pipes, averting an explosion that could have killed him and his wife. Paul told police Amy had work-related conflicts with him. The FBI investigated, suspecting Amy and Jimmy, who had a background in chemistry and engineering, but lacked sufficient evidence. Friends said Jimmy had talked of shooting, stabbing, or strangling Rosenberg, while Amy asked about bomb-making as a joke. Still, the case was buried, marking yet another time Amy evaded justice. After Harvard, Amy worked in research at various hospitals but frequently lost jobs due to her difficult personality. She tried writing novels, 3 dark thrillers featuring scientist protagonists haunted by past deaths, ultimately forgiven by God. One story involved a character killing her brother, hinting at Seth, but none were published. She joined local writing groups but was disliked for her arrogance, dismissing others' feedback and boasting of distant ties to famed writer John Irving. In 2002, an incident in Peabody, Massachusetts, highlighted Amy's aggression. At an IHOP, she demanded a high chair for her son, Seth, but a staff member apologized, saying the last one had gone to another female customer. Amy stormed over to the woman with the final chair, shouting, "Do you know who I am? I'm Dr. Amy Bishop," then punched her in the head in front of her children. The manager made her leave, and police arrested her for assault, but the charges were later dropped. Once again, she slipped free. Her family and Jimmy excused it as stress from raising 4 kids and working. In 2003, Amy took a job as an assistant professor at the University of Alabama, moving the family to Huntsville with Jimmy. They developed an automated cell incubator, electric petri dish, securing over $1 million in research grants. Initially praised, it was later criticized as costly and unnecessary. Amy focused on this project rather than publishing research, a key requirement for tenure. Still, she believed her Harvard degree and invention would secure her career. Reality, however, had other plans. At the University of Alabama, Amy taught 5 biology courses but alienated students. They called her arrogant and cold, complaining she read textbooks mechanically, gave surprise tests unrelated to lectures, and said students weren't as smart as Harvard kids. A group petitioned for her removal, delivering it to Department Chair Gopi Padilla, but he dismissed it as freshman jitters about a new professor. UAH expected Amy, with her Harvard pedigree, to attract grants, so they overlooked the complaints. To secure tenure, a permanent position, Amy needed quality published research. In 5 years, she produced just 3 papers, none in major journals. A 2009 article in the International Journal of General Medicine, a pay-to-publish outlet, listed her, Jimmy, and their 3 daughters as co-authors, deemed frivolous. In March 2009, UAH denied Amy tenure for insufficient research and poor teaching. She appealed, alleging gender bias when a professor called her crazy, but he stood firm, saying she acted abnormally, out of touch with reality. Her appeal failed, and in early February 2010, UAH notified her that her contract would end after the spring term. To her, this wasn't just job loss, it was personal humiliation. She complained to Jimmy about colleagues with personal grudges and unfair treatment. February 12, 2010, started like any other day for Amy. She taught 2 classes, anatomy and introduction to neuroscience, then went home for lunch with Jimmy. He drove her back to campus for a 3 p.m. faculty meeting. They even discussed a date night, but that date never happened and never would. The meeting at Shelby Center's conference room included 13 biology department members discussing next semester's plans. Though Amy was set to lose her job, she attended, sitting near the door, silent, for 40 minutes. At 3:37 p.m., as Gopi Padilla prepared to close, Amy stood, pulled a Ruger P-85 from her bag, and fired. She targeted those nearest her in sequence. Padilla shot in the head, dead on the spot; Maria Davis in the head and chest; Adriel Johnson in the head; Stephanie Monticello in the face; Luis Cruz Vera in the chest; Joseph Leahy in the head. The room erupted in panic. People hid under tables, screamed. Deborah Moriarty, Amy's friend, knelt and begged, "Don't do this. Think of my kids and grandkids." Amy aimed at Moriarty and pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. Moriarty rushed forward, and with other survivors, pushed Amy into the hall and barricaded the door. In under a minute, 3 were dead, 3 wounded. Amy fled to the 2nd floor, rinsed the gun in a bathroom, and stuffed it with her blood-stained jacket into a trash can. She borrowed a student's phone and called Jimmy. "I'm done, pick me up," as if the meeting had just ended. SWAT arrived soon after, arresting Amy as she exited. Jimmy saw her handcuffed while he was taken for questioning. Padilla, Davis, and Johnson died. Monticello, Cruz Vera, and Leahy survived, bearing permanent physical and emotional scars. After the shooting, police searched the Bishop Anderson home, seizing computers, a camera, and Amy's documents. They found a metal pipe matching the type used in the 1993 bomb sent to Rosenberg. Though not explosive, it reinforced old suspicions. Jimmy admitted the Ruger was his, bought from a friend. A week before the shooting, he and Amy went target shooting, a rarity. Jimmy later said he noticed nothing unusual, but it suggested Amy had planned it. From a promising scientist, she descended into despair, her simmering rage erupting into tragedy. Amy denied everything, saying, "I wasn't there. They're still alive." But 10 surviving witnesses, plus the gun and bloody jacket, proved her lies. The UAH shooting prompted Braintree police to revisit Seth's 1986 death. Initially, case files had mysteriously vanished. Chief Paul Frazier found them hidden at the home of former Captain Ted Bucker, who died in 1993, under orders from Chief John Polio. Frazier believed Polio, Judy's friend, covered it up. Records showed a shell casing in Amy's bedroom, proving she fired once there before killing Seth downstairs. After the killing, she loaded another round, hard to explain as an accident. After the shot, Amy fled in panic, taking the gun to a nearby Ford dealership. She pointed it at mechanics, demanding a car, claiming she was escaping her husband. One froze in fear, but police arrived quickly. After a standoff, an officer sneaked behind her, forcing her to drop the gun. She was arrested, but hours later, Braintree Chief John Polio ordered her release without charges. A National Enquirer article on her bedroom floor detailed a similar crime, a killer using a shotgun to steal a getaway car. Did Amy draw inspiration from it? Judy, with town council influence and a close tie to Polio, was believed to have intervened. She claimed she was present, but timelines didn't align. She likely arrived after Amy fled. Massachusetts governor ordered a reinvestigation. Investigators later concluded she might have intentionally killed Seth out of jealousy, not accident. On June 16, 2010, Amy was indicted for first-degree murder in Seth's case. On June 18th, 2 days after the indictment for her brother's killing, she attempted suicide in Huntsville jail. She survived, was treated at a hospital, and returned to jail. Her husband complained authorities didn't inform him of the incident. Amy faced charges of capital murder and 3 counts of attempted murder in Alabama. Initially, she pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but psychiatrists found no clear disorder. On September 11, 2012, she switched to guilty to avoid the death penalty, advised by her parents and lawyer. Despite the plea, Alabama law required a mini-trial. On September 24th, in a red prison jumpsuit with short, unkempt hair, Amy sat quietly as the jury heard evidence. After 20 minutes of deliberation, they found her guilty. She was sentenced to life without parole. In court, Amy shook her head when called an intentional killer. But the prosecutor countered, "She shot each person in the head. It can't be accidental." Her lawyer said she regretted it, terming it the UAH incident and claiming no memory. But victims like Joseph Leahy refused forgiveness. Pleading guilty waived her appeal rights, yet in 2013, she appealed, arguing she didn't understand the waiver, but it was denied. She pushed for a trial in Seth's case to clear her name, but courts declined, believing she'd spend her life behind bars. Amy serves her sentence at Julia Tutwiler Prison in Wetumpka, Alabama. On April 18, 2021, tragedy struck again. Her youngest son, Seth Anderson, 20, born on her late brother's birthday, was accidentally shot dead by a friend in a car in Huntsville. Police confirmed it was unrelated to Amy's crimes, but the coincidence chilled many. Amy Bishop's case left pain for victims' families and Huntsville's community. Judy and Sam rarely spoke, calling Amy very bright and saying she snapped. Jimmy, her staunch supporter, faced suspicion but no charges. He lived quietly afterward, raising their 3 remaining daughters. Lawsuits from UAH victims targeted Amy, Jimmy, and the university for compensation, but her sentence stood unchanged. The story raises questions. Why did Amy escape justice repeatedly, from Seth, the pipe bomb, to IHOP? Did Judy leverage influence to shield her? Had she been prosecuted in 1986, would the UAH tragedy have happened? Amy's violent traits, jealousy toward Seth, rage at colleagues, were evident long before, yet ignored. Some speculated she targeted her father that morning in 1986 after a fight, mistaking Seth for him, though it's just conjecture. Amy now goes by Amy Anderson in prison, perhaps to distance herself from Dr. Amy Bishop. She complains her IQ drops due to inmates' poor vocabulary, but no one cares. The case is a lesson in legal system failures and academic pressures. From a Harvard PhD to a killer, Amy Bishop left an indelible stain, and the full truth may remain buried with her behind bars. What do you think about this case? Please leave a comment and subscribe. It will motivate us to make more videos. Thank you.